Welcome back to another episode of CCW Insider, where you hear about the matches and stories from wrestling's last territory, Coastal Championship Wrestling. I'm Ryan Joy, and I run MinutesToBellTime.com, a website and database tracking pro wrestling around the world. Once again, I thought we had Ariel Levy secured for this week's show, but once again, he has gone dark on us. So instead, I'm talking with one of the men that took the CCW World Tag Team Championships away from Ariel Levy and the South American Alliance. We have Jonny Nova for episode 8 of CCW Insider, but here's the thing. Jonny and I spoke for a long time. So long, in fact, that I'm having to break the episode in half. So this week, you're going to get part 1. In the first half of my interview with Jonny Nova, we talk about elevated status, winning the CCW World Tag Team Championships, what those belts mean to Jonny Nova, Nova's venture into celebrity boxing, and what his parents thought of him jumping into the wrestling business at the age of 15 years old. This is a great interview with CCW Tag Team Champion Jonny Nova, and it starts right now. I'm talking with Jonny Nova, one half of Elevated Status, the new CCW World Tag Team Champions. Nova, along with his partner E.R.A, defeated the dominant South American Alliance at Bash at the Brew 16 earlier this month. Jonny, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan J. Glad to be here, man. I've watched every episode in preparation for this, so I'm ready for all your hard-hitting questions, but don't work me into a shoot. All right? Do not work me into a shoot.
Fair enough. Well, congratulations on winning those tag team championships earlier this month. Talk about that victory. I know it was the ladder match, right? So what does that mean to you to win those championships?
What it means to me is a couple of things. Number one, I'm starting to figure out more and more who I am in this business. I've been around the proverbial block of the indies a little bit now, and it seems everywhere I go, I win tag team gold, and I usually do it with someone that nobody's expecting me to. They're usually a pretty boy. They're usually, someone you call your girlfriend's favorite wrestler, but I've never had someone quite like Ernest R. Alexander before. So what it means to me is I'm figuring out who I am now. I think the fans are starting to figure out exactly who Jonny Nova is, because I know there's been questions about that ever since I showed up to CCW. And personally, yeah, it's an honor. This CCW is one of the only companies I worked for down here. I don't like being the type of guy that just shows up, just anywhere to wrestle. We have a bump card in this business, and I don't want to get hurt doing something that I'm not completely sure about. But Coastal Championship Wrestling gives me the opportunity to be creative, the opportunity to show what I can do with a wide variety of other talents, and to, get the rocket strap, so to speak, here. It's a huge honor, and I take a lot of pride in it, and I'm going to do my best to not just fill the shoes of the South American Alliance, but rip them open like clown foot style through the front, because I think elevated status is exactly that, elevating the status of the CCW Tag Team Championships, the tag team division, and thus the company as a whole. And I cannot wait to get underway at the next Bash show. Honestly, I'm pumped.
So now you guys, you and E.R.A, who you just brought up, you were only a tag team for about a month. Really,
technically, you could argue that we weren't a tag team even up until that ladder match. Like, once the bell rang, they're a tag team now. He had been my manager, or second, so to speak, at a Bash match against Ariel Levy the month prior, and we had came out together in unison, shown that unification. And we had the 6-man tag team match at Breakout, either just prior or just after that, with Malik Avalon, Gangrel, and SAA. But I think you could make the argument we did not have one tag team match. If the fans would remember, E.R.A earned himself a title opportunity, and instead of doing what everyone thought he was going to do, going after the world heavyweight champion, or going after the Southeastern champion, or the cruiserweight champion, because E.R.A, he can cut or he can bulk. He's just like me. He's like a lot of those guys that you see in Japan that can make those transitions very easily. But he didn't do that. He went for the tag team titles, and then you take it a step further. What's next? Oh, well, who's his partner going to be? Someone else like him, a pretty boy, maybe someone that's like a bodyguard type deal. No, he did it once again what nobody expected him to do, and he chose Jonny Nova to be his tag team partner. And when he first approached me, we'd fought in the ring together before. It was a hard hitting match, and there's certain guys you work with when you're in there. Whether or not you would want them on your side if you were in, a tag team match or a multi-man match or anything like that. E.R.A, to me, was one of those guys. And because of that, it did not take me long to consider how much success we would have as a tag team, especially right off the bat with that title opportunity that he was guaranteed. And once again, it was an honor to be chosen by him to fill that role. And once again, taking it a step further, our first match together is a ladder match, and we do once again what nobody expects, dethroning the champions who are how long? 2 years almost?
16 months, 50 title defenses.
50 title defenses. Yeah. And we chose the proper stipulation by attacking with that ladder. We knew that they would decide to want to make it a ladder match to prove whatever point they were trying to prove. We didn't have to pin or submit them. And at the end of the day, we walked out with the title. So we just keep doing what nobody expects. And I think that's something people are going to have to keep in mind as the future rolls on here.
So you talked about sort of like the decision-making process of like coming together as a tag team. And that's all good. Like, you have some mutual goals and things like that, but it's still really impressive that like on your first outing as a team, you come up with these titles. So what is it about the two of you that just meshed that well on that night and now you're the tag champions? What is it about the
I don't think it pertains specifically to that night. I think it goes all the way back to the beginning of both of our careers. I think that we both have been put in positions that we haven't wanted to put in before. And we have a lot of the same feelings, a lot of the same aggression building up, in a sense that like people don't expect certain things out of us. And as a performer, that's insulting. And I'm respectful towards everyone, but I've heard on commentary, different places I've been, oh, he's unassuming. I've heard people say like, oh, E.R.A is the guy like you don't want to lose to. Like, that's like, come on, nobody wants to hear that. And I don't think people should be saying that anymore, mainly because we are the tag team champions. But tag champions or not, we've proved now that we can exceed expectations. And that's the reason we meshed that well that night. That's the reason we're going to continue to mesh that well, because we walk in there with a chip on our shoulder, and we're going to do this until the wheels fall off, because there's no other reason to be doing it. I don't understand. Like, I've been here I think this week, May 17th or 18th, 2021 is when I walked into CCW and faced Jake Tucker for the first time. That was the first time CCW saw Jonny Nova. In 1 year, I have challenged for every single championship and came that close until the tag champions are around my waist now. And I don't think a lot of guys that come here can say they had that much success in that short a period of time, especially. And I know there's guys that have been here since the beginning, long tenured individuals in the South Florida championship title scene, and I respect the hell out of them. But if you are not here to exceed them, then what in the hell are you doing here? So to go back to your question, that's why E.R.A and I succeed the way we do in big pressure situations like that. And you're going to continue to see that as time rolls on.
So the two of you come together, you form the name Elevated Status. And I know you kind of used it in your, in your description of what's going on here. How did that name come about? Was that a meeting between the two of you and you said, this is what we're going to do, so that's what we're going to call ourselves?
I think it was just something that happened organically. I mean, we're both two human beings. You put a microphone in front of our face, we're going to yap our mouth out. Case in point right now. But I think it just came to the point where we knew I think I said something along the lines of the South American Alliance at the time they were tag team champions. We were down in Homestead about a month ago, and I said they were what 16-month tag team champions, 50 title defenses, nearly 2 years on top, and they were bickering and arguing at the time. And of course, you saw what happened at Bash 16. It's tragic. It is what it is. But I mean, they were not acting like tag team champions, and to us, that meant the status of the tag team championships was at an all-time low. We call ourselves the last territory here, as I said, they're acting like a bunch of perros, barking back and forth. And what does a perro do to his territory? He pisses on it, and that's exactly what they were doing. E.R.A. and I, we wanted to pull those titles out of that puddle of piss and elevate the status of them, and that's exactly what we're doing. You saw us just this past Saturday night at a celebrity boxing event with Black China, run by Bitcoin Rodney. We're talking about like red carpet national names here, not just coastal. So we are bringing the tag team championships and thus CCW to a new elevated status. It's exactly what's happening. That's why we came up with the name. It happened organically, and that's where the best things in wrestling come from. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Organically.
And now you brought up just now celebrity boxing. Talk about your involvement there. Because this is
honestly what it goes back to. It was a surprise to me too. I never thought I'd do anything like celebrity boxing. As far as my like athletic background outside of professional wrestling, I played almost every sport under the sun growing up. Tried a bunch of them, didn't like them because they were not professional wrestling. That includes amateur wrestling. It just didn't give me the same feeling. It didn't have the grandeur, the pageantry, the pomp and circumstance. You know, everyone said it before. Pro wrestling is what it is because it's pro wrestling. There's nothing else like it. There's genres within pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is not a genre of anything else. And because of my respect for that, like I was never interested in any other sports. But through my 20s, I decided I had to take a hiatus from wrestling, and I explored acting for a while. I did a few different things with independent films. I did theater. It helped me a lot with professional wrestling and just approaching it with a new perspective. And I think just my overall body of work, while nothing that's you're gonna browse my IMDb for hours for, there's something there that Damon Feldman saw. Damon Feldman also being a Delaware County native, where I'm originally from, back in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I think, he saw another Delco man trying to, scratching and clawing for opportunities out there. I had the acting experience. I have the professional wrestling experience now on a completely north to southeastern level. Why wouldn't you want to put me in the ring with some celebrities to, I go back. It reminded me of Roddy Piper and Mr. T. It reminded me of like Butterbean and Bart Gunn. However, whatever opinion you have on that, like these are things that we remember. You're nodding because you remember them, and I wanted to do something like that. Back in October, I had a fight with their middleweight champion Josh Colon, and it wasn't, once again, not like anything anyone expected. I got knocked on my ass in that fight. Am I a boxer? No. I got knocked on my ass in that fight. But you know how I got up? I didn't just get up at the count of 8 like everyone else did. I did a, Shawn Michaels, wabah, kip up. And the whole crowd came alive. They didn't remember me getting knocked down. They remember me getting back up. Dark Knight reference, by the way. Why do we fall? So we can continue to get back up. And I knew that could be a moment in the match. If I get caught here, at least I know how to get up in a way that's going to bring that pro wrestling flavor to celebrity boxing. Like Black China's coming in with that, like, almost that she's 16 million followers on Instagram. What else there's for me to say? She brings that flavor, that influence to celebrity boxing. You have other athletes like Rashad Evans coming there. You got Caitlyn Jenner showing up there, who is going to bring in a completely, that just brings like a whole nother flavor to it, because you just got controversy and drama and all that stuff. The Flavor Flav coming in, what the hell is he going to do? There's a lot going on there, and I think that I can play a big role in that, in facilitating pro wrestling to another audience, facilitating Coastal Championship Wrestling to another audience, and showing everyone of exactly what Jonny Nova could do, the unexpected. So that's the deal with celebrity boxing. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's a lot of fun.
It kind of goes back to elevated status, like you said,
elevating the status.
Exactly. Of all the organizations you're involved with.
Exactly. Because celebrity boxing, I think a lot of people that haven't been familiar with professional wrestling, maybe not in a long time or ever in their lives. They see me, they look me up, they see Coastal Championship Wrestling, they see that's in South Florida, where June 11th, Fort Lauderdale, that's where Joe Rubo and I are going to have our fight. That's a whole new set of eyes on CCW. CCW sees me on Celebrity Boxing. That's a whole new set of eyes on Celebrity Boxing, and I don't think that should be underestimated.
No, I agree. So you briefly talked about, trying all these different, you tried all the sports when you were a kid, and you were not really attracted to them because they weren't pro wrestling. So obviously you were a wrestling fan growing up. Uh, who are some of your like inspirations or your favorites from that era that kind of inspired you
As
to get into
far
that?
as just professional wrestling,
Yeah.
I could start at the beginning. My brother took a Barney the Dinosaur tape and recorded SummerSlam '95 over it. I was 2 years old. Shortly after that happened, I went to go pop in that tape because I knew how to work it back then. Little kids have been growing with technology for a long time now. And, it was right on like the beginning of the Shawn Razor ladder match, the second one.
Yes.
And I don't know why, I just never really it never had captured my attention when he had been watching it before. My older brother in the background, shout out to Ryan, by the way, pure mass, let's go. But yeah, something about Shawn Michaels' entrance with like the shadow and like who the hell is that? Razor Ramon coming out, everything's sparkling on him, and then like what, they gotta climb a ladder to get this thing down. Like I was a 2-year-old, I loved climbing at the time. There was just a lot of things that clicked in that moment. I decided whoever wins this match is going to be my favorite wrestler, and it was Shawn Michaels. And I just, when he stepped away for a few years, The Rock captured my attention big time again, and like I just started to hate guys like Kurt Angle and Triple H. And then later on, when we were talking like Ruthless Aggression, I loved Batista, I loved The Undertaker, guys like Mr. Kennedy, Booker T. Like they kept me captivated after The Rock had gone. And then I started my pro wrestling training around that time. I was scratching and clawing, looking for the first people that would train me. Since I was like 14, honestly, I would send emails to different pro wrestling schools, just wondering like, what's the soonest I could start? Do you have like I just wanted to get out of where I was at the time and just wrestle. And it's just that's all I wanted to do since I was a very, very little kid. And as far as the influences go leading up to that, the big three for me, I would say now, looking back, would be Chris Jericho, CM Punk, and then it's just like for me, like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels are just like this glue that sticks together like throughout my like fandom as a child that really kept me captivated and really in love and obsessed with wrestling.
I love that that when I asked you the question, you went to that ladder match.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool about that is we were just talking about your big ladder match win, right?
Yeah.
So
that's something I do keep close to the chest. But like when that match got announced, and was like, oh, and like honestly, like when Shawn had left, like in '98, I kind of like I would play with my action figures while it was on in the background, and like my stepdad and my brother would be watching it. But I wasn't really like captivated by anyone too much because like I'm at the time like 6-7 years old and Stone Cold's on there giving people middle fingers and beer and all that, and like my mom's like, oh, you shouldn't be watching that. But then I was still in love with wrestling. I just wasn't captivated. Was on there at the time. But I will say WrestleMania 17, there was another one where it was like we had to watch it. I had to be there for it. I wasn't into too much, but then that triple threat tag team TLC match, like that was another thing where it's like, oh, now I'm like really interested in like mid-card wrestlers now because like the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian Dudleys, they killed it that night, all for the tag team championships. And then to be able to sit here and look at that and remembering E.R.A. ripping it down right above me after I went through a freaking table off of a ladder. It's cool how certain things seem to come full circle if you believe in that sort of thing. And that goes back to my time even at H2O in New Jersey. One of my first big wins was in a ladder match to earn a shot for their hybrid championship, and I had one of my best matches. It's still to me one of my favorite matches in my heart, deep down, at against Lucky 13. You might have seen him on GCW before. Excellent performer, and that goes back once again to another ladder match. So yeah, ladder matches have kind of been a theme of mine throughout my life, in and out of wrestling, as a fan and as a performer. There's something that I think it's like the Royal Rumble. Nobody is going to complain about a ladder match. Like, everyone loves the Royal Rumble. You're going to want to see like a Hell in a Cell. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things, and a ladder match being something that maybe I might be associated with one day, like Shawn Michaels, the Hardy Boys, Razor Ramon, Edge. That's something that definitely appeals to me, and I'm gonna keep on winning ladder matches. You know,
Sure.
I'm gonna keep on winning ladder matches.
Now, you said that you were writing letters to wrestling schools at the age of 14.
Yeah.
When did you get to start?
Oh, so
And who took you up on the offer to
I
train?
actually was approached because I was approaching a lot of major schools across the North America. I remember reaching out to the Storm Wrestling Academy. I remember reaching out to the Harley Race Wrestling School in Missouri, Gangrel School way back when. So like getting once again things coming full circle. It was like Storm, Gangrel, Harley were the big three that I really wanted to hit, and that they didn't end up happening until much later. But the first people that took me in, I was approached at school by a guy named Cameron Crisculo. I didn't even know he had any involvement in professional wrestling or anything at all. He was like more like into like the band scene, like rock and metal and stuff. He was doing like sound work for a guy who had a license to run shows in the state of Pennsylvania. So therefore had a wrestling company of his own. Obviously, you're going to take advantage of that. They were American Championship Professional Wrestling, ACPW. I remember driving up to South Philadelphia, Broad Street with my dad and a partner of mine, Nick Cox. We went to high school together. We went through the business. There were a lot of ups and downs together, and that's a story for another time. But we walked in there at 15 years old. We met with LeGrand Jackson, aka Onslaught. He was the head trainer at their school at the time. It was a hybrid professional wrestling and boxing gym. The boxing side of things was run by a famous like cut man named Joey E.R.A. He had done some like acting and stuff, but he was a cut man for a lot of boxers that were on like HBO at the time, Showtime Boxing. He had like a small part in the Rocky movie at the time. So it felt like this huge big deal to me. And we had certain guys like Shane Hagthorn, Alex Payne, Pelly Primo, who were working Ring of Honor shows at the time that would come and help us out there. So it was a lot of fun. Shaheem Ali, who eventually would go on to Ring of Honor as part of Coast to Coast. Frankie Frizzo, I remember helping me out a lot. And sadly, what ended up happening was my head trainer, LeGrand at the time, about like 6 months into my training, got in a pretty nasty car accident and just could not return to the gym for a while. So like things just kind of spun out of control, and it just became like an open ring type thing. And for like a few years there, I just kind of would help build the ring. I paid my dues, you know, built the ring, tear down the ring. Been there with the truck driver. I didn't have my license at the time, but I drove with the truck so many times over the course of 3 years with ACPW, and that's where I got my start. Yeah, South Philadelphia.
That's certainly a wrestling town for sure.
Definitely, yeah. It was growing up like being a little too young for UCW, but then like knowing about that lore though. You know, it's a little bit of pressure coming out of there, being like a guy from up there. But I love coming from there. I love Philadelphia. Love South Philly. The wrestling scene up there always thriving.
Yes, and it's I've been to shows at the 2300 Arena. It's a special crowd.
Same.
Whenever
Yeah,
you're
it's
there.
so hot. I don't know if they have air conditioning now. It used to be so goddamn hot, and there's just beer and sweat and just man, there's a specific vibe about that building. It's like the way Steve Austin like talks about the Sportatorium, and like certain guys talk about like Madison Square Garden, Tokyo Dome, Korakuen Hall, the ECW Arena, 2300 Arena, whatever you want to call it, the Alhambra they used to call it. Classic arena. I hope it never goes anywhere. Love that place.
Okay, so you're 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What did parents think of you training to be a wrestler at 15? Parents, grandparents, what the people around you, what did they think?
I think like a snap reaction to it would be like absolutely not. But then I think like as someone who has like grown now and like I worked with kids for 3.5 years, so I have a new perspective on like raising a child. I think they thought maybe, like I mentioned earlier, I tried all those different sports, nothing was sticking. Maybe we just let him try this. He won't, you know, he'll come home in 6 months and not want to do it anymore. obviously was not the case. Even when I wasn't getting, booked per se on like shows, I'd help build the ring for different promotions, like not just ACPW. We rent out our ring to like TCW in New Jersey, which was kind of like an NXT in the 90s to ECW in a way. They would use a lot of ECW talent and pick guys from there to put on ECW and building the rings for them and different promotions around like kind of up in that Allentown area. And so yeah, it was quite the experience there as far as the parents' reaction to it. I was traveling a lot more for the first time in my life. I was coming home with a bunch of bumps and bruises. I'm extremely pale, as everyone knows, so I'm coming home with rope marks across my back, and they're just like, he'll quit any day now. I think that was genuinely the attitude. As much as I love my parents, I don't think that they ever necessarily believed that it was something that I would stick with, or especially now at 29 years old, still doing to this day. And after that 5 years absence, taking care of my grandfather, I once again coming back to it, keep on going, keep on elevating. It's something that I wish my mom was still around to see where I'm at now, and it's my grandfather too. I wish he could. My grandfather is a huge boxing fan, so if he could see me doing professional wrestling and doing the celebrity boxing now, I think, like, looking back, it's a lot of like doubt. It's a lot of, I don't think this is going to work. What are you thinking? Delusional was thrown around a lot, but I fought through that. I mean, like, it's hard when your family doesn't necessarily support you in your hopes and dreams and what you want to do. And like, you start thinking about it, like, do they even believe in me if I wanted to do anything, yada, yada, yada. So that's like, thinking about that, there's some negativity there, but it's something that I've worked past, climbed over, gotten past. I'm down in South Florida now, so far away from where I started, doing so many more things that I even thought I would never even do. And I'm thinking they would be very proud of where I'm at now, and they would definitely be rooting me on now. It's just, I was scrawny, pale little redheaded kid that didn't play any sports and got bad grades in high school. I don't blame them for thinking that, but I will say it was definitely a challenge of my own to overcome. So it's cool reflecting on that.
Now, I think it's been, so doing the math here, about 14, 15 years you've been in the wrestling.
Yeah, I would say getting close to 14, definitely at least 13 and a half at this point. I would say it was like October 2008 is when I started my training. I had my first match like 2 weeks later because it was just like, oh, we need bodies for a battle royale. It's like, all right, I got shorts and wrestling shoes. Let's do it. Like CM Punk Ring of Honor attire here. Let's just go out there.
Well, that's our show. Thanks so much to Jonny Nova, who was a great guest. And remember, we have another episode covering Johnny's journey from 15-year-old kid training outside of Philadelphia to CCW World Tag Team Champion. In that part of the interview, you'll hear how Jonny learned from guys like Harley Race and Booker T. So drop us a comment on who else you would like to see on this show. Follow us on social media, on Minutes to Bell Time on Facebook and Instagram, and on Mins to Bell Time on Twitter. Be sure to watch a live wrestling every Tuesday on the CCW YouTube channel, and follow Coastal Championship Wrestling on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you next week. You have been watching CCW Insider, produced by Minutes to Bell Time in association with Coastal Championship Wrestling.